during this time, did you sort of have a eureka or, light bulb aha type of moment where trading started to click for you and you began to think maybe this is something you could do long term?
I didn't go into trading trying thinking that okay, this can be my long-term career to replace my job in VFX at the time. That wasn't really a thought until year three. In my first 2 years, I was always struggling. Lost a lot of money, especially the first year. But I would say during the 2 years is where like I realized sometimes things really work, and I really study the winners and how they were different from my losers. So during that 2 years is where I discovered risk management. When I say discover, I mean like actually implementing it. People always talked about it online, but I never listened. So the when I started actually following risk management, making sure that my profit, if I'm taking the trade, is potentially 2 or 3 times greater than my risk. That's when I started seeing some gradual progress. Nothing was overnight. So that's number one. And the second thing is I started journaling my trades and actually tracking my win rate and risk reward per trade, per different setup, I mean. And, like I said earlier, in the beginning, you're trying out 10 different strategies, right? That's taught in 3 different DVDs. Then I actually started tracking them and realized, okay, like there's only 3 out of the 10 that actually work somewhat consistently. So I stopped trading everything else. So that's why I started to find focus on the kind of stocks I like to trade and the kind of setups or strategies I like to trade. So that's another thing. But during the 2 years, first 2 years, even though I discovered both of those things and started implementing them, it was a very slow process in which I started losing less and less. I didn't necessarily make more and more money right away, but just by losing less, you can like the P&L curve at the start, it's like a huge dip, right? But it's like a slow, gradual progression back to that red to green point. So that was when I realized that not necessarily this can replace my job, but hey, this trading thing, this could actually work, right? Like maybe not to replace my job, but it can definitely pay rent or help me pay the bills, student loans. So that was kind of the gradual aha moment or process during the first 2 years.
Okay, great. Yeah, trading is one of those industries where break even is almost a success by itself.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
and so implementing risk management and journaling were some of the things that helped you. Um, in terms of how you were able to sort of break even, what type of setups were you finding the most success with at that time that I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, became eventually your strategy? What type of setups, were you looking to and having success with?
Well, first 3 years I was trading part time. And a lot of my strategies that eventually worked out for me were those that either, if at the end of each day, in the evenings after work, I'll go in and scan for the top gainers on that particular day. And that's when in the evening I'll research a catalyst. Is it an earnings play? Is it like biotech, phase one, phase two, phase three? So I'll do my research the evening before. And the next morning, then I plan to buy the dip. I'm always long bias in the first 3 years, pretty much, because shorting wasn't really an option for me at the time. But by figuring out which kind of stocks have the most likelihood to bounce or continue trending up that breakout the second day, that's where I focus the majority of my time on. Just basically buying the dip, either, the second day if it gaps down to like a particular support from the first day, then I'll buy the dip there. Or the second scenario would be if the second day it continues to break out through the first day's higher day, and look at the daily chart if there's room to go and how depending on how good the catalyst was, then that's when I'll keep on buying the dip as long as it breaks through the first day highs and then ride it out until I have to go to work pretty much.
Okay, great. Yeah. it sounds like you had a lot of specificity in what you were looking for. Do you attribute some of that to the journaling that you were doing?
Yes, I think it's from journaling that I realized if I long stocks that have fundamental news, then the likelihood of that long setup to succeed is a lot higher. And also the likelihood of kind of like the range of that breakout to continue, the range will be higher. Like the reward part is higher than if you were just trading any random stock for the technical reasons. So the reward is a lot higher and the risk is probably the same, but the reward is higher and the success rate is higher. So that's definitely from a result of tracking the stocks I trade and my own like personal results trading those setups. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing is probably the most important is just to stop trading the setups that was no longer working for me.